Hello, this is yet another video trying to help you get those summative assessments done and understood. So if you are on the first summative assessment, this is going to be the video for that one. This is what you do. You'll go in, and I have edited things to try to make it a little bit easier. So you'll notice that here's a PDF version of it. Here's a Google Docs version of it. I wrote all the stuff in here, put all the pictures in here, but this one right here is my favorite. So this is going to, you click on that, and it's going to force you to make a copy of a Jamboard. So do that, make a copy. And let me explain what the assessment is doing. So I put on here everything that you're supposed to do. So number one, there are 5 things that you're supposed to have. Number one, you're supposed to describe this task in your own words. So if you need to come back to here, read this, put it in your own words, that's great. Step number 2 is you are supposed to calculate this area. I highlighted everything in green on this picture to show what I mean. Let me just give you some other ideas with this. So if you talked about the dog going out to the very end of his leash, then like he could go all the way out here and everywhere in between, right? So let's talk about how much area that is. Well, first of all, you can see that shape is a circle. The big green one that comes over here is the shape. However, the dog can't go through the house. Like the leash doesn't let him go like magically through the house. He has to kind of like wrap around the house. And so then 20 feet of the leash would be taken up with the house, and then the rest of it can wrap around. Same right thing with the bottom. 40 feet of the leash is taken up with the house, and the rest of the leash can wrap around. So really, he's only getting into the garden right here. So it's not a huge move that you have to do to make that move to make it happen. But yeah, so let's talk about those other shapes. So if I were to come in here, and you're going to have to calculate how much leash is left once 20 feet is taken up with that, and then you'll have a shape like this. So that would approximately be the shape of the leash if the house wasn't there, the shape of the leash where the dog can go from that point on. But notice, like, we already calculated all this area over here by calculating the big circle. So you're really only going to have to calculate this much of that area. Same thing with this circle down here. Like once the leash starts wrapping around the house, it makes a circle. And again, we are only going to be using this much right here of that circle. So then let's talk about how much of the big circle you have. If we cut this big, huge circle in half, you know that this is 50%, right? About 50%. And then this would be that cut in half again for over here. So that part right there is 25%. And with that same idea, that's a quarter of the circle. This would be 25% of the small circle and 25% of the big circle. So to find the area of the original area, you're going to be using this set of formulas right here. So 75% of the big one, where the area of a circle is pi times the radius squared, and 50 is the radius. The medium one is 30, the small one is 10. So you're going to have to calculate all those, add them together, and that is your answer for number 2. For number 3, you are supposed to talk about where you would move this circle. So I could put it right there. There's the original one. So we want to move this leash, the center of this leash, to where the dog's not going to be getting in the yard. And you can kind of easily see it by basically if the circle goes over the garden at all, it's probably not going to be good. So you could move it all the way over here. Looks like the dog might be able to get in right there. If we just move it all the way down here, that might work. So you're going to have to describe if that's where you're going to move it, because there are some other options. And if you can justify why it works there still, you can do that. This isn't the only option. But now you need to describe where is the center of this circle. So it is right here. So how did it get from here down there? Either like a turn or like how far over to the right and how far down. Like you have to describe that in your own words. You have to calculate it, use the numbers that are on the graph, like use those to help you figure out how to describe where that is. Step 4 is you're supposed to estimate the new play area. And I say estimate because in order to calculate that, back here on 1, we only had like parts of 3 circles. But really, if we started to have to calculate the area of this one, it's going to get ugly. Let me just show you briefly what I mean. We could say that we have the whole circle from here to here. So like all of this area looks kind of like a weird Pac-Man with a duck. Anyway, and then you'd have to calculate, because it would wrap around right there. So you'd have to calculate that, and then you'd have to calculate this weird triangle right here, and then you'd have to calculate that weird triangle right there. And it's way more complicated. So that's why I say estimate. So let me talk about what I would recommend for estimating. Well, if you look at the original picture here, and let me see if I can undo some of the marks that I made on it. Oh, okay, it's on the whole document. Okay, if I were to come here and just look at the green, imagine that's like a green blob, and it is hugging the house, right? So here's the house. Here's the house, and maybe I'll even fill that house in with blue. Okay, so there's the house, and the green blob is hugging the house. And what fraction of that house is being hugged? Well, let's see. If that was right there, that's about half the house, right? So that's 50%. And if we cut this in half, that's another half of half, so that's 25%. I don't know. So you're going to estimate, say like the green one, the green circle, the original play area hugs the house by this percent. And then when you come here, you could say that this red blob hugs the house. What hugs what percent of the house? So again, you can split it up and just like make an estimate for about what percent, because it's going to bend around here. What percent is being hugged by the house? In other words, on this one, the house is taking up more play area than this one. So the house is still going to take up some play area, but it's going to be less play area. So you'll want to talk about that. Last step is number 5. You are supposed to summarize that you did everything. That this is where the new place is. This is why it's going to work. Like you're just saying like, girl, because it's the girl who has the dog, right? Girl, move the dog here because this is why. And I wouldn't recommend typing on this slide unless you like go over to something else, like open up a Google Doc and then maybe type in a Google Doc just so that you can have spell check, because I don't know if you noticed, this is what happens in this one without even having any like squiggles underneath it. So do spell check here and you can type it up here. So those are the 3 parts to summative assessment 1 with really thorough explanation.